States. It's Mark from the United States.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Mark from the States. How are we doing today? I'm doing fantastic. I hope you are as well. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate each and every one of you for hanging out with me today. We're going to learn something different. This is about West Point. Yes, I know it's in the United States. I know it's about the U.S. Army. It's the military academy, prestigious. It's in New York. It's where they train officers. And, that's kind of what everyone knows. But there's going to be things in this little video. It's not very long. And it's by Forces News. So please go support them. Links, of course, will be in the description. We're going to learn something for those of you who stick around, who have clicked on this video. It might have some interest as kind of see what the deal is over there. I know it's very hard to get admission to. We had a couple kids that I went to school with that ended up going there, and they were like valedictorian. They were, it took a certain path that you had to be following to be able to be admitted. It's a tough school. So I'm looking to learn something new. Please come sit with me on this big fake couch. Let's learn something about West Point today. All right, let's do it. Oh, before we go, I think we should probably read from the book, don't you think? You ready? Let's go ahead and say stop. Up. There you go. Okay, here we go. This is called a royal letter. What? Postbox. I got my glasses. I can't even read. Postbox regnal ciphers. Regnal. Why am I think I'm going blind here. It's hard for me to even see. Even with these glasses, I think I need to update my prescription. Where is it? Fleet Street, BC 4A 2BJ. Yeah, what is that word? Regnal? Regnal? Regnal. Postbox regnal ciphers. Once you start postbox hunting, and that's oddly enough, I'm going to keep my eye out when I come visit. Definitely. I don't know if I'd be hunting, but I certainly would like to keep an eye out and see one. Once you start postbox hunting, no walk through the city will ever be the same again. Following the introduction of a centralized uniformed penny post system, the first traditional British pillar postbox was introduced to the island of Jersey in 1852. The rest of the mainland Britain followed over the subsequent years. The regnal, I'm so sorry. Please let me know how to pronounce that properly. The regnal cipher on the, I just want to say it's regnal. That's what I'm going to go with. Regnal cipher on the front of each postbox will tell you in which monarch's reign it was created. See, that's what I'm looking forward to seeing. Each monarch from Queen Victoria onward has their own regnal symbol, usually combining their initial and regnal number. The most common you will see around London are, of course, Queen Elizabeth II postboxes. Queen Victoria postboxes are the oldest and come in slightly different designs, such as the early Penfold postbox. You can find a Queen Victoria postbox on Fleet Street outside number 141. You can consider yourself a postbox hunting champion if you spot an Edward VIII postbox. King Edward VIII only sat on the throne for less than a year in 1936. We all know this, before abdicating to marry divorcee Wallace Simpson, that bloody American woman. I'm telling you, not a good history. I've said this all the time. Royalty, British royalty, and American women do not make good matches. Something always goes wrong. So, King Edward VIII, as we know, only sat on the throne for less than a year in 1936 before abdicating to marry Wallace Simpson. And so, very few were erected during his reign. So, 141 is where Queen Victoria's post box is on Fleet Street. But it doesn't say where the King Edward VIII one is or where they might be. Anyway, but I believe this is... Oh, no, that's not a picture of it. It is a picture of the next story, though, of the post box, a green one. Well, you know what? I'm just going to read that one as well. It's not a long video, so it's not that easy being green. What is it? It's a green post box. Where is it? St. Martin's Le Grand, EC 1A 4ER. On St. Martin's Le Grand in the city of London, you'll find an unusual green hexagonal post box. It is a replica of green Penfold's post box erected in 2016 to mark the 500th anniversary of the founding of the post box under King Henry VIII. Penfold post boxes, named after their designer John Penfold, were installed from 1866 to 1879. The first post boxes were erected on Jersey in 1852. We just learned that in the previous story. And were painted red. Green then became into vogue. But from 1874 onwards, post boxes were painted red again, as people had apparently been struggling to spot the green ones. Okay, so yeah, you want to make sure they're noticeable because they are something you use, right? So the green ones apparently were hard to see, hard to find. Interesting. Very interesting. I love this book. Good deal. All right, let's get into this story. This is about West Point. There is, I am assuming, maybe something to do with the UK in this at some point. It's put on by Forces News, so we'll see. Let's do it.
Welcome to West Point, the US Army's only military academy. Essentially, it's a university, but students graduate not just with degrees, but as officers of the United States Army.
West Point are mandated by Congress to train annually 4,400 officer cadets. They produce 1,000 second lieutenants every year.
They consider themselves up there with the likes of Harvard and Yale in terms of academic rigor and student success. The place itself is huge. The site covers 40 square miles with all its training areas. They have 30 different sports, including a parachute display team, 3 Olympic-sized pools, and 2 stories of basketball courts. It costs nothing to attend West Point, but in return for their free education, graduates must do 5 years in the Army and a further 3 in the reserves.
That I didn't know. I didn't know it was free to attend. Which makes sense because you have to then, fulfill your service contract. But I didn't know it was free, like completely free. Huh. Interesting. That's awesome.
Applicants must be US citizens between 17 and 23 and single, as well as a plethora of essays, physical tests, medical tests, and the entry exam. Candidates must also have a nomination from a senator and someone connected to the military.
I'd heard of that.
Cadet English made it through all that and is now in his 2nd year. He's kindly agreed to show us round.
Hello, my name is Cadet Sebastian English, and you're joining me at West Point. This has been my home for the last 2 years and my home for the next 2. Currently, we're on the Plain, which is the cadet parade ground, as well as the largest spot of green on campus. Dotted around the plane, you'll see statues of famous generals, notably General Washington on his horse. Behind us, General Eisenhower, as well as General MacArthur. All of them are facing the plane, monitoring the legacy of the academy and making sure that parade is up to standard. Studying is tough. We have a really demanding schedule that requires us to balance both an academic life, a military life, as well as physical fitness. I'm studying mechanical engineering as well as a minor in Chinese. To be a cadet, you have to...
Why do you think he's learning Chinese? That's telling.
Learn your place, especially in the Army, as well as in service. And this place puts that in perspective for you. These large buildings with narrow streets in between them makes you feel small, but it does also make you feel like you're part of something and working towards a larger goal. At West Point, we have some weird terminology. I'll start with our class system. The fourth class, or their first year here, are plebes. That term originates from Roman times, where plebes or plebeians were the people who worked on the lead plumbing system for the Roman cities. And they were considered the lowest class. So being the most recent here, those are our plebes. Our yearlings are, or yucks, they've been here for a year. So a little bit accustomed to the system, and that's where that term comes from. The second class, or the ones who've been here for 3 years, they probably have the weirdest name, and the one that the origin is not very clear. They're called cows, and the explanation I like the most is that in the US, when cows were sent out to pasture and return home, they've been calling of the cows. And so being their third year, they sort of understand the systems, so we're calling the cows back in from pasture. First is the most self-explanatory. It's their first class year, and they're about to graduate, and they're not gonna let any of us forget that. Welcome to the Cadet Mess Hall. Here, twice a day for breakfast and lunch, the whole Corps of Cadets comes together to eat a meal in 15 minutes and get back to class. As you can imagine, it's usually pretty loud for those 15 minutes. We're all 4,000 of us sit down in our companies or Division I teams to share a meal. But that's essential to the bonds that we form at West Point. In the center of the mess hall is what's affectionately called the poop deck. It's a nautical term, and up there, whenever a foreign dignitary or a general comes to visit for lunch, they'll be announced from the poop deck, and the whole Corps of Cadets will go crazy from the 6 wings of the mess hall. Our tables are set up all in the same way, with fourth class cadets or plebes sitting at one end and the firsties sitting at the other. The plebes, after setting the table with what's already set up for them by the mess hall workers, serve the food to the upperclassmen, and then wait until everyone has food on their plate before they call the table, which goes something like, "Sir, ma'am, the fourth class cadets at this table have performed their duties and are now prepared to eat," at which point the table commander, sitting at the far end, is going to grant them permission to eat, and then the whole table can begin. Other duties include the left of the plebe at the far end, which is the dessert gunner. Their job is to cut up any desserts that are that the table has for that meal.
The dessert gunner.
The dessert gunner. And that can be a pretty complicated job, especially when we have a cake that isn't necessarily in a circular dish. The job's taken very seriously. Making sure that everyone has a fair portion is their responsibility when they sit in that seat. Then, moving up the table, you have your yearlings and cows midway, and then the first is at the far end. By having condiments at one far end of the table, it requires us to communicate up and down our chain of command to all enjoy the meal together. The mess hall is also one of the best decorated spots on campus. All around are the flags from every state, as well as all the U.S. territories, as well as some of the Revolutionary battle flags from the 13 colonies. Accompanying all the flags are
there's the connection.
Several notable graduates who are looking down on the Corps of Cadets as they enjoy their meals.
There's a lot of looking down on the cadets going on in this.
It's looking down in a very constructive way, though, I'd have to say. Like,
West Point sits on the banks of the mighty Hudson, and long before there was a military academy here, this strategic plateau was critical in the Americans winning the War of Independence. Since the colony's primitive roads were difficult to navigate, the river was a liquid highway for efficient transportation of troops, artillery, food and information. If the British could seize the Hudson, they could choke off supplies to the rebellious colonies. But the Patriots were victorious, and the US Army has occupied West Point ever since.
When I walk around, everywhere I look, there's a story. There's a story about General Eisenhower right here to my right, who was the President of the United States, graduate in 1915. But even the stained glass windows in our cadet mess hall, which were donated by the class of 1944, we call them the D-Day class because they graduated on June 6, 1944.
Wow.
So just the stories and the connectedness to the United States history, the history of the world even, is just something that's overwhelming at times because there's always more stories to learn and there's always more facts to learn about the Academy.
Hannah King, Forces News, in New York State, USA.
That was interesting. I'm sure it could go into far more detail. It's a beautiful campus, though, and the buildings are pretty cool. I did not know it was free. That's so wild. I did know that you needed basically a sponsor, in a sense, from a senator or someone like that, to get you in. And I know the academics is tough. And then, of course, physical fitness and training to be an officer. And so they are, in exchange for it being free, you go 5 years and then 3 more in reserves. So 8 years in exchange for free education and military training, and I think that's a pretty good deal. So maybe not so much now because you're guaranteed to go to war or go somewhere where it's tough and dangerous, but there was probably a good, you hit the sweet spot there where there was nothing going on. Yeah, that's a great trade-off for sure. But you're not going to West Point because hoping to not see service. That takes a special breed. Let me know what the equivalent. I would like to probably learn about that's in England. The equivalent of like a military academy, college, university, that sort of thing. I would like to learn about it. I can't think of the name. If I've seen it before, I don't remember. But I'm sure once someone says the name, I'm going to go, oh, right. Yeah, I have heard of that. But I'd like to take a quick look at that as well. I hope everybody's happy, healthy, and safe. Thanks for coming along and just hanging out. Something different. Something, hopefully you learned something. I did. There's a few things I learned. Like I said, there's probably more in-depth videos out there, but it's just beautiful. Just the whole thing's pretty awesome. I wonder if you can visit, like do a tour or something. Who knows? All right. Take care, everyone. We'll see you soon. All right. Bye-bye.
Mark from the States, Mark from the States, it's Mark. And he's